Like, you guys are muted, Sylvia, FYI.
Okay, thank you for that, Cam. So, our chair, Bill Jean has started the meeting, just so you know, and we're starting roll call. With minutes. With minutes, yes, thank you. So from Auburn, Chris Sterndale.
Still here and still young.
Excellent, Bill Jean.
President, yes.
John Nelson,
Present, yes.
Mark Snyder,
Present, and yes.
and online we have, Brian Lord.
Present, yes.
Did I miss anyone from Bedford? Good. Candia, we have Ron Lavador in house.
Here, yes.
From Chester online, we have Deb Munson.
Here and yes.
All right, great. Hold on, I have to make two notes. From Deerfield in-house, we have Fred McGarry
Here and yes.
and Errol Rose.
Here and yes.
And from Derry online, we have John O'Connor.
Here and yes.
And thanks, John, and Richard Tripp online.
Here and yes.
And didn't see Jeff Moulton. Okay. From Francistown in-house, we have Linda Kuhnhart. Here and yes. And Gary Schneckenberg.
Here and yes.
And I didn't see Al. Nope. From Goffstown online, we have Jacob LaFontaine.
Here and yes.
All right, I think that's it from Goffstown. Yep. From Hooksett, we don't have anyone at the moment. From Londonderry in-house, we have Art Rugg.
Here, yes.
And online, Suzanne Brunel.
Here and recuse.
Thank you, Suzanne, and Deb Levens. Deb, you're muted.
Yes, didn't push hard enough.
Thank you. Manchester in-house, we have Peter Capano,
Here and yes.
Ray Clement,
Here and yes.
Dan O'Neill,
Here and yes.
Eliza Augusta.
Here and yes.
Kevin shows us thinking?
Nope.
No. Hey,
Today.
not today. New Boston online, we have Mark Sunan
Here and yes.
and Ellen Campbell.
Here and yes.
Thank you for both of you. No one from Ware, I believe, and there's Brian. From Wyndham, we have Peter Griffin in-house
Here and abstain.
and Ed LaPointe.
Here and yes.
And online, we have CJ Withy.
Here and abstain.
And we saw Brian Battaglia from Londonderry pop in online. Brian, you have to unmute, just unmute yourself. And this is minutes and struggling over there, Brian, but we see him sort of. All right, and from New Hampshire DOT, we have Lucy St. John in house. Thank you, Lucy. Just to recognize our non-voting MPO members, we have Vince Pagano from Central RPC.
Everyone.
And Colin Lenz from Stratford.
Morning.
Thanks, everybody. Did I miss anyone? Oh. Okay.
Thank you, Sylvia.
I earned my mini slice.
Yep, face. All right, let's jump on to new business. Nate's up, transportation improvement program. Yep.
All right.
I mean, this is informational only. Nate. With audio.
All right. Can everyone see this in full screen mode online?
Is it
Yes.
just will go away? Can you check that, Nate? 'Cause-
Visual?
Yeah, I noticed that you were,
I
why aren't you?
maybe because I'm showing a slideshow.
No, that shouldn't be.
Hmm.
Can the virtual viewers see Nate?
Yes.
It-
Oh, not Nate, just the presentation.
It just says
Correct.
SNHPC on the,
That's weird. Oh, yeah. Can you click
Oh.
video back on?
Let's see. There we go.
Thank you.
All right.
That's weird. Okay, now you should be able to see. Nate.
No, I can't because I stopped sharing. Now I'm gonna have to expand this out, share again.
Perfect.
Okay, I think we're in good working order. Are we back on full screen mode online?
It looks
We are.
good, yes.
All right, good. I'm gonna shrink this and move it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about projects. We're going to talk about our new draft transportation improvement program, the fiscal year 2025 to 2028 transportation improvement program, what we call our TIP, our TIP. I show this slide regularly when we're talking about different transportation programs and plans, just so you understand how they all fit together. We talk about the 10-year plan and the long range plan and the TIP. Today we're talking about the TIP. The TIP is a 4-year document that is a federal requirement for any projects that will have federal funds spent on them in the region. Essentially, in New Hampshire, the TIP is basically the first 4 years of the 10-year plan. They're the projects that are closest to construction. So we have our long range plan that has projects out 20 plus years. Projects advance into the 10-year plan. At the point they enter the 10-year plan, that is really an actual funding commitment at the state level to advance that project to construction. So it's a big threshold to get into the 10-year plan. And the projects you're seeing today have been in the 10-year plan for a number of years and have advanced towards the front of the 10-year plan. They're the closest to construction. They're the most fully developed. And it's really, we're looking essentially at the first 4 years of the 10-year plan here. The TIP gets updated far more often than the 10-year plan does. The 10-year plan is updated on a kind of a rolling 2-year cycle. The TIP gets updated about every month with minor adjustments and then amendments periodically. Anything is programmed beyond fiscal 28, it's not going to appear in the TIP. So just, a note about the TIP threshold there. We're only covering a 4-year period here. Any questions on that? So we have been working with our colleagues at the other MPOs in New Hampshire, as well as New Hampshire DOT and our federal agency partners through the interagency process to develop our draft fiscal 28 or 25 to 28 TIP. We released the draft TIP on February 12th. We are currently in our 30-day comment period for the draft TIP. That will run through March 14th. Earlier than normal. Your next meeting will be March 18th, which is the 3rd Tuesday rather than the 4th Tuesday. So just on a scheduling note, remind everybody that next month's meeting will be a week earlier. That will be a public hearing to consider adoption of the draft TIP and any comments that we may have received during the comment period. Okay, on to the projects, and I'm going to hide the floating meeting controls here so people can see the headings of these slides. I'm going to start with the projects that are not in our region. And we do carry some projects in our Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission TIP that are not in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region. And there is a reason for that. And the reason for that is the way that the Manchester urbanized area is drawn in the US Census. It's hard to tell from this slide, but there's a little portion of green right here in the towns of Bow, Allenstown, and Pembroke. that is actually part of the Manchester urbanized area as designated by the US Census. And because it has that designation, we as an MPO have to make sure that all projects within the Manchester urbanized area that have federal transportation funds programmed for them are in our TIP. And there are two such projects. One in Allenstown that is complete streets improvements to Main Street, and one in Bow that is safety improvements on Route 3A. In fact, if you open our TIP and look at the project list, I think the Allenstown project is the very first project you'll see because they're listed in alphabetical order by town. So why are those projects in our TIP? That's why. I am not an expert on the project development or status of these particular projects. Thankfully, Vincent Pagano from Central is on the call today. If anybody has any questions on these particular projects, that's part of the reason why we always have participation from Central New Hampshire Planning Commission at these meetings, and vice versa, us at their meetings, is to make sure that we are coordinating effectively to ensure that the entire Manchester UZA is covered in our TIP. Now we'll highlight some of the projects in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region. I'm not going to go one by one through these projects. These are all local bridge projects that appear in our TIP. There's local bridges in Auburn and Bedford, Francistown, 2 in New Boston, 1 in Ware. These are municipally managed local bridge projects. The reason that they are in the TIP is because they have federal funding now programmed for, in most cases, the construction phase work, in other cases, PE and right-of-way phase work. Because there is federal funding associated with bringing some of these local bridge projects to fruition, we need to make sure that they are in the TIP. So I'm not going to go into any great detail about the individual local bridge projects, other than to say we are including them in the TIP because each of those bridges has some element of federal funding associated with them. I'm going to go alphabetically by community here and just kind of highlight the projects that you'll see in the project list of the draft TIP. I'll start in Bedford. This is the Route 3 widening from Hawthorne Drive to Raymond Wazorek Drive. Total funding in the TIP is just under 3.8 million. Construction, that is all largely for engineering and right-of-way phase work. The construction of this project is scheduled beyond the TIP horizon, so construction scheduled to begin, in this case, in fiscal year 2029. So you won't see construction funding, but this project is moving forward. The engineering consultants have been convening a project advisory committee that includes Bedford staff, residents of the area. I am on that committee, in full disclosure, as a representative of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. So engineering work is moving forward on this project. Construction scheduled to start in 2029. Bedford 44296. This is one of the newly funded CMAQ projects from the last CMAQ solicitation, CMAQ being Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. If you recall, we had a solicitation in the 2022-2023 timeframe for CMAQ funding. All of those funded CMAQ projects got included in the current 10-year plan and are now being reflected in our TIP. This is 3,800 feet of new curb sidewalk on Old Bedford Road from the 101 intersection and around the Memorial Elementary School area. So there is some engineering phase funding programmed in the TIP for this project, but construction is scheduled beyond the TIP horizon. So also, and there are a number of these projects that are new electric vehicle charging infrastructure related CMAQ projects. This is one of them, also in the town of Bedford. This is 4 DC fast chargers at the Hannaford grocery store at Jenkins Road in Bedford. There's a small amount of engineering funding for this effort. Construction, however, is beyond the TIP horizon. So construction of this project is happening, again, after fiscal year 2028. This is the first of a number of these EV CMAQ projects that you'll see in the coming slides. Candia 41592. This is officially known as safety and operational improvements on Route 27, 43, and Raymond Road, locally known in the town of Candia as the Four Corners area. There is just over $3.36 million of funding in this tip. That will include engineering and remaining engineering, and engineering is already underway. This will be the remainder of engineering as well as right-of-way phase work and the beginning of construction. Construction is scheduled to start in 2028 and will likely continue in beyond the tip horizon in fiscal 29. So you're seeing a portion of construction funding in this tip for that project. Candia Raymond 43839. This is a state-managed Tier 1 pavement project. This is the rehabilitation and reconstruction of a section of Route 101. Most of this project takes place within the town of Raymond, but a piece of it goes into the town of Candia. Anytime you're dealing on those Tier 1 limited access roadways, when you're dealing with reconstructing a portion of a road like that, it gets expensive quickly. And this project is just under $23 million of funding in the tip. So construction currently scheduled for 2026 to 2028. This is a state managed project, obviously on a large limited access facility. So we don't have any control over where that, how much funding is programmed or where that, what the construction timeline is. This is all state managed as a Tier 1 roadway. Darien Londonderry Exit 4A. This is project 13065, but in reality, there are many sub-projects here. It's being done in phases. There is an A project here that is the actual interchange itself and a piece of the connecting road, which is now called Old Rum Trail. There's the B project, which is from basically 28 bypass to the end of the A project. And then there's the C project that goes out to Route 102. The A project and B project have already had funds obligated. The A project and B project are already in construction, and there is no actual funding in the tip for either the A or the B project because those have already been obligated. There is funding for the C project in the tip, which is currently scheduled to start in fiscal year 27 and continue beyond the tip horizon. That is a delay from the current tip. So the C project has been delayed to fiscal year 2027 to start because additional time is needed for the design of that project. So if there are other questions, we can, potentially have the project manager visit the MPO and give a more detailed update about the Exit 4A project. But for our purposes here today, I would note that the A and B projects have already been obligated or are in the construction phase. And the C project has construction funding programmed in the tip, but is seeing a delay to start now, currently anticipated to start in 27. Hooksett 29611. This is the widening of US Route 3 from Martins Ferry Road to Alice Avenue. Total funding in the tip is just over $10.5 million. This is very much in the engineering phase and moving into the right-of-way phase. There is an active project advisory committee. The public hearing with the layout commission is going to be scheduled in the next couple of months. And I know the project manager will be giving an update to the Hooksett Town Council in March. So this project is very much moving forward. Start of construction has been delayed to 28. Additional time was needed to refine the design. That has been a public process to refine the design, and now they are honing in on the final design for the project. So things are very much moving forward, notwithstanding the construction delay to 28. Hooksett 43851. This is a municipally managed project to reconstruct two intersections, the intersection of 3A and Hackett Hill Road and 3A and Main Street in Hooksett. Total funding is just under $4.4 million in the tip. Construction currently scheduled for fiscal 27. Their engineering work is proceeding on this. I know that the engineers back, I think in October, presented some conceptual design alternatives to the town council for both of these intersections. And they are currently evaluating those alternatives and we'll go from there, but currently scheduled for fiscal 27. Hooksett 44627. These are more EV fast chargers, CMAQ funded. This is at the Merchants Auto location, the publicly accessible Merchants Auto location in the town of Hooksett. There is a small amount of engineering funding programmed in the tip, but again, the construction of this would take place beyond the tip horizon, so after fiscal 28. Londonderry 41593, this is improvements at the intersection of Route 28 and 128. Total funding in the tip is 4.135 million. This is a project that is anticipated to start in fiscal 28 and with construction continuing beyond the tip horizon. So you're seeing a portion of the overall construction cost of this project in the tip, and then another portion of it will happen beyond this current tip horizon. Also in Londonderry, improvements at the intersection of Route 28 and Stonehenge Road programmed in the tip for 4.29 million. Construction schedule fiscal 25 and 26. So quickly moving towards the beginning of construction on that project, or at least is currently programmed. It was anticipated to actually start earlier than this. They did have a delay to the current schedule of fiscal 25 and 26. To allow additional time for right-of-way and stormwater control measures. So I think they've largely gotten through that now and are headed towards construction in the not too distant future. Londonderry 44361. This is also a recent CMAQ project, but this is a rail trail project. This is phase 7, the final phase of the Londonderry rail trail. $600,000 of funding programmed in the tip for that, with currently anticipated to go to construction in fiscal 28. Also in Londonderry 44632, these are DC fast charging stations at the Nuria Energy gas station and convenience store on Rockingham Road in Londonderry. Total funding in the tip, again, this is largely PE phase funding, 44,606. Construction, again, occurring beyond the tip horizon for these chargers. Londonderry Wyndham Seabrook 44355. This is a state project, state CMAQ project, overseen by the New Hampshire DOT's Bureau of Traffic. It is for signalization coordination improvements on 3 signalized corridors. 102 in Londonderry, 111 in Windham, and US Route 1 in Seabrook. There is PE phase, engineering phase funding programmed in the tip for just under 175,000, but construction of this is anticipated beyond the tip horizon. So, yeah, again, this is a Bureau of Traffic project at New Hampshire DOT for signal coordination and optimization in those corridors. Manchester 16099, this is the parent project for the exit 6 and 7 reconstruction. This is really, the 16099 project is really for PE and right-of-way phase work. The construction projects for exit 6 and 7 are separate. I think they're 16099A and B now. The 16099 project for PE and right-of-way phase work does have $21 million of turnpike capital funding programmed in the tip. Construction is beyond the tip period, and exit 7 currently proposed to go first from 29 to 31, followed by exit 6 in 31 to 34. So still a few years away on the beginning of construction of that project, but $21 million of engineering and right-of-way phase work programmed in this current tip horizon to advance that. Manchester 24206. There are a pair of projects, this one and the next one, to do each of the Amoskeag bridges. This is the westbound bridge, 5.62 million, construction scheduled to begin in fiscal 28 and continue beyond the tip horizon. So that's Amoskeag westbound, not to be confused with Amoskeag's eastbound bridge, which is programmed for 11.58 million, with construction programmed for 25 to 27. So significant amount of work programmed on both of the Amoskeag bridges, eastbound and westbound, over the coming years. Manchester 41594, this is improvements at the I-293 exit 1 interchange, currently programmed for just under $2.6 million with construction in fiscal 28. This is going into engineering phase work as we speak. So more details to come on this project, but nothing has changed in terms of the anticipated construction schedule there.
Nate, do you want questions now or at the end?
I can take them along the way, sure.
Just with this operational improvement, it stacks on that ramp.
Yeah.
Good, is that what it is?
Yeah, we originally it was envisioned as a potentially an adaptive signal control project for the exit one area and beyond. Whether or not that might include some off-ramp lengthening to allow for additional queues there. But originally it went in as an operational improvement project, looking primarily at adaptive signal control there. Whether or not that ends up being the final design of the project remains to be seen, but that was how it went in. That was the original idea. Manchester 42881. This is the a new northbound right turn lane at South Willow Street and Weston Road intersection. This has been in final design. Total funding 1.15 million, going to construction, I believe, in fiscal 25 as currently programmed. I know they were holding final public meetings and stuff on this intersection in the not a few months ago, so it is quickly heading towards construction. Manchester 42886. This is the construct a roundabout at River Road and Bicentennial Drive at the entrance to the Dairyfield School. Total funding in the tip is just over $2 million. Construction currently scheduled for fiscal 27. So, and I think there is or was a recent public meeting on this particular project. So things are moving forward. Manchester 43826. This is the RAISE grant. This is the project that tracks Manchester's RAISE grant. Total funding in the tip just over 22 million. That's the remaining construction phase funding that has yet to be obligated. We work closely with our partners at the city in making sure that the funding timeline in the tip reflects their current timeline. So they're currently planning to obligate that funding in fiscal 25 for construction. Construction will, happen, for an extended period of time beyond fiscal 25, but for tip purposes for this project, it depends on when construction funding is obligated. And currently the plan is to obligate that funding in fiscal 25. If anything changes with that, we work closely with the Department of Public Works and their staff to make sure that our tip reflects their current schedule. This is a municipally managed direct federal award. So, but they are moving forward with towards construction on this project and have continued to refine engineering designs over the recent months. Manchester 43850. This is Eddy Road exit 6 southbound on-ramp intersection safety improvements. This is not far from here where the mobile station is on Eddy Road. This was total funding in the tip is just under $10.4 million. Construction currently scheduled for fiscal 26 and 27. This is a project that got added in at the request of Councilor Gatsis at the end of the 10-year plan cycle, 2 10-year plans ago. And we were, I get questions about this project fairly frequently because it's close by to here, but also what people want to know what the scope is. The scope, as we currently understand it, is to reconstruct the southern southbound on-ramp, which currently, if you're on Eddy Road, you're only supposed to go onto that on-ramp in one direction. Well, people go the other way sometimes. That will be reconstructed to accept traffic from both directions on Eddy Road, and then that short northern southbound on-ramp near there will be closed permanently. The work on Eddy Road will include construction of turn lanes and a signalized intersection at the on-ramp and Lorraine Street intersection, as well as the off-ramp. So that's not far from here in that mobile station area, but that short little on-ramp, northern on-ramp will ultimately be closed as part of that project. And the Eddy Road ramp will receive traffic in both directions.
Do any commercial properties get taken as a result of that?
I believe the commercial properties are going to get taken as a result of the Exit 6 project later on.
Yeah. But
I,
there's
if I recall, both of those gas stations, are
two
affected by exit 6 as well as that landscape company. That's, I don't believe they'll be directly affected as part of this project, although there may be some impacts, but I believe the exit 6 project, the larger exit 6 project will affect all of these properties.
And not to
Yep.
continue on this, but the northern southbound, northern one is the when you come on and you're also dealing with the southbound offering. That's the ramp
Yeah.
that's being eliminated.
Yeah.
Not the one by the shore one by Dunkin' Donuts.
The one by, well, I guess it's the, yeah, across from Dunkin' Donuts will accept traffic from both directions.
Which kind of happens now.
Which kind of happens now, they're not supposed to, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You're only supposed to access that from one direction right now, but people do turn left into that coming down Eddy Road sometimes.
Because they have no clue because it's a crazy place right
Yeah.
now, so everybody's happy about this.
So that will be the main access
You
point.
put your life on the line
Yes.
trying to get on southbound. So
Tournament of
The first time I got there, I was like, oh my God.
Manchester 44-352. This is also a recent CMAQ project, but it is on Route 28A, better known as Mammoth Road in the city of Manchester. It's a 1.7 mile section that will see a variety of signal work, turn lane improvements, and sidewalk gap filling between Bridge Street and the Cillian Hughes Road intersections. Total funding in the tip is just over 300,000. That is for PE phase work. The actual construction of the project, I think, is in the $2 million range or thereabouts for construction phase work. And that is programmed beyond the tip horizon. Manchester 44857. This is just listed as downtown pedestrian infrastructure improvements. This is a congressionally directed spending award from the last round of CDS awards. Better known as a quote unquote earmark. So we do carry this project, although this is a congressionally directed spending award. And if you have, questions about the exact scope and everything of where pedestrian infrastructure improvements will be happening as part of this project, we can get that for you. But otherwise, we were not particularly involved in the original programming of this project as it is a congressional award. Manchester Transit Center 44831. This is the Manchester Transit Authority's new transit center. This was a discretionary FTA Section 5339 award announced a few months ago to construct a new Manchester Transit Center on the site of the existing MTA facility. Just under $25 million of funding programmed in the tip for that effort. I know Mike Whitten and the team at MTA are very excited about this, as are we, that these improvements are going to be happening and really look forward to helping them in any way we can to help bring this project to fruition as quickly as possible. Pretty exciting win to get a discretionary award of that size from Federal Transit Administration in our region. So kudos to Mike and Brian and the whole team at MTA for making that happen. Nashua Merrimack Bedford 13761. This is the Effie Everett widening project from Bedford to Nashua. Most of the construction work for this project in our region is already long underway and close to completion, at least the Bedford portion of that. There is significant work yet to come in the Merrimack and Nashua portions, particularly in the town of Merrimack, where I think it's Wire Road and Babusick Lake Road have two bridges that need to be completely replaced to accommodate the wider footprint of the Effie Everett. Those are more significant projects, and this is now not anticipated to be fully complete all the way through Merrimack and Nashua until fiscal year 2031. This is a large multi-year effort. Again, the portion in our project, in our region, is largely complete. We do carry this funding in the tip for PE and right-of-way purposes to support the whole corridor. Some of the construction projects that are specific to Merrimack and Nashua, we don't carry in our tips. Our colleagues in Nashua do that. New Boston 27729. This is a redless bridge. It's actually a culvert, but classified as a bridge. Culvert replacement for a redless bridge carrying Route 13 over Cochrane Brook. This is a state managed effort, and funding is just over 555,000 in the tip. Construction scheduled beyond the tip horizon. So the funding that's in there is largely for PE and right of way. Salem to Manchester. This is the I-93 expansion, which is done, but we're not done paying for it. We have debt service. So you'll see 3 debt service projects. The 14633 project is the most significant. The waterfall that if Commissioner Cass was here, he would call it a debt service waterfall, does hit in fiscal 26. So the state funded portion of debt service goes to north of $20 million a year. That is supported by the 4 cents on the gas tax passed as part of SB 367 a number of years ago, maybe more than a decade ago now. Supports the debt service for 14633. 14800B and C are Garvey bond debt service. So that's actually, it was bonded against future federal aid revenues. So the debt service is federal for those portions. It's the 14633 project that's the most significant for state funds. And it's going from what, just under $3 million a year debt service on 14633 to over 20. So that was always part of the bond model. That was always expected. Everybody knew it was coming, but it is here in this tip now. So over the 4 years of the tip, 72 million, over 72 million of state funded debt service for I-93 construction. Where 41471, this is Route 77 over Canal 2 of Choate Brook. This is another state managed bridge project. Again, like the one in New Boston, they have programmed PE phase funding, but construction delayed beyond 2028. They will adjust that as necessary based on bridge inspection reports. If they need to go faster, they always, make an effort to do so, especially with bridge projects. They have a complex model that they use to program their state managed bridge projects, and so they're keeping a close eye on all of these. Currently, this one is scheduled for construction beyond the tip horizon. Wyndham 40663, this is the Route 111 corridor engineering study. This is an ongoing effort. I know Dave Tilton and Sylvia in our office have been participating in this particular corridor study. There is a little bit of remaining funding, 155,000 in the tip. There were funding committed before this tip horizon to this project as well. So this is the remaining funding here to support that corridor study. This is not going to construction. It exists to set the stage for a future construction project on the corridor that would be guided by the town of Windham and New Hampshire DOT collectively. So this will set the stage and identify whatever the preferred improvement is for 111. And then we would take that and consider it for future 10-year plan consideration. Wyndham 40665, this is Route 28 and Ralston Road in the town of Windham. This is moving towards construction in fiscal year 2027. We did see a delay from 26 to 27 in this tip to allow more time for project design, but the project is moving forward, and currently 27 is the target for construction. Wyndham 44633, this is another Nuria Energy gas station EV charging project. So these are 2 DC fast chargers. This is also at a Nuria Energy gas station. This one is at 13 to 15 Rockingham Road in the town of Windham. Again, small amount of funding program for PE phase work in the tip, with construction of this occurring beyond the tip horizon. I'll go quickly through these just to note that we do program as well and make sure that Manchester Transit Authority's funding is reflected in the tip. They get 3 different sources of federal funding. The first and largest is Section 5307. This is core urbanized area transit funds. This supports their fixed route services, their paratransit service, and their preventative maintenance efforts. This funding comes in by formula to the Manchester urbanized area through Federal Transit Administration. So there's no surprises in terms of their amount of federal funding in the tip. They also get Section 5310 funding through the Nashua urbanized area for cart related services in the Nashua urbanized area. And in our case, that is primarily dairy, Londonderry, that these funds benefit. CART is a program now under the umbrella of MTA. So these funds come to MTA, but they are intended for elderly and disabled transportation in the Nashua urbanized area for CART. Same thing with 5339. There's a portion of funds that come in. 5339 is for capital improvements. So these are rolling stock replacements, van replacements, capital. This also comes in through the Nashua urbanized area for CART purposes. And again, benefits largely the Derry and Londonderry portion of our region. There are all sorts of statewide programs in the TIP, a lot of them. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but it runs the gamut from Americans with Disability Act improvements for pedestrian infrastructure all the way to overhead sign upgrades and everything in between. If you want to know about what these projects may entail in our region, we do have a appendix in our draft tip. It is Appendix D, where we know there are projects programmed in our region in those individual programs. We disaggregate them. They're only listed at the program level in the tip, but if you want to get a sense of what we know is coming down the pipeline in those programs in our region, Appendix D is the place to find that. The one that we'll get the most questions about is the Transportation Alternatives Program. That is the non-motorized funding program. That is listed only programmatically in the tip. You'll just see one listing for program statewide for transportation alternatives. There are 5 different TAP projects in our region. The Derry Rail Trail, the Londonderry Rail Trail, Manchester Canal Street, South Manchester Rail Trail. All of those TAP projects are still moving forward. You can find them in Appendix D. They haven't gone anywhere. They're just not listed individually in the tip. Lastly, and mercifully for some of you who've been listening to me talk now for 30 plus minutes about projects in the region, you're probably tired of listening to me. I will note one final item is that we have incorporated into our draft tip new performance targets for the region in the fields of transit asset management and public transportation safety. We're doing this just to reflect we've received some updated fleet data and safety data from Manchester Transit Authority. We want to make sure our targets are as up to date as possible. And so we're taking this opportunity to, as part of the draft tip, to update these targets to reflect MTA's most recent data. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Nate. Any questions for Nate?
Yes, I do. Hey, with what is happening in Washington, has there been discussions on the state level? What if none of the federal funding comes through?
I don't know that we've had discussions at the state level about with none of the federal funding comes through. I think there are certain programs, and nobody fully understands everything that's going on right now. There are certain programs that we know are likely to be at risk, particularly the EV charging programs.
Hasn't that funding already been killed?
No. We don't really know what's going to happen. That funding is authorized in the IIJA. So that funding is authorized under federal law. Awards were announced.
Nothing, no.
Awards were announced. In most cases, what's already been obligated continues to move forward. New awards were announced prior to the presidential transition. One of those included New Hampshire getting $15 million of charging and fueling infrastructure funding as a discretionary award. That is very much in question at this point as to whether or not that will end up being approved federally and contracted between Federal Highway Administration and the state of New Hampshire. That is an open question. So I would say that is very much at risk at this point. But in most cases, projects that have already been obligated and committed under a cooperative agreement at the federal level are continuing to move forward. It is new awards and new obligations, and that is one of them that may be at risk. We have heard recently, so this is a pending tip action. So when we approve our tip next month, we will send that to New Hampshire DOT. New Hampshire DOT will send it to Federal Highway Administration for approval. Normally that would go to our division office at the Federal Highway Administration for approval. We are hearing word that the Office of General Counsel at USDOT is now reviewing all STIP actions and TIP actions across the country. That may end up with some delays, or they may take umbrage with certain projects and certain TIPs. We don't know yet. So a lot of this is very much a moving parts, and we haven't seen any stop work orders or anything like that for any existing projects that we're working on. New obligations are a different question, and we will see what comes of any Office of General Counsel review of our TIP here in New Hampshire, and what they may take umbrage with or not. I know that's a non-answer answer, but it's all the information we have right now.
I was curious about one of the things I saw, I'm on the board of the MTA, so we received a printout of the federal guidelines for federal funds. One of them was talking about local projects versus non-local projects. All of these, I was wondering if there was speak on the difference between a local and a non-local project, since all of this is coming into New Hampshire for purchasing New Hampshire.
Yeah, so some projects are managed locally, some projects are managed by the state. The locally managed projects we call LPA projects, local public agency projects. Most of the transportation alternatives projects, the congestion mitigation and air quality projects, the local bridge projects that may see federal funding, those are all locally managed, meaning the state of New Hampshire DOT doesn't do the project development process for those. There is a set of guidelines that we use in New Hampshire called the LPA manual that DOT publishes that prescribe the rules and regulations for how to deliver one of those projects.
It's big, right?
It is big. It's a big document. What, if any, changes may be coming to the LPA program as a result of the new administration, I guess remain to be seen. But all of the TAP projects, all of the CMAQ projects, except for that one Bureau of Traffic project in Londonderry, Wyndham, and Seabrook, are locally managed projects. So we have a lot of those in New Hampshire. All of the EV projects are locally managed, except for the state NEVI program. But all of the ones I just talked about with the EV charging stations at gas stations and grocery stores, those are not generally managed by New Hampshire DOT. They tend to be managed at the local level. So all of those would fall into that category.
What's that on your, in the tip, in the draft document, was it section 8 that showed the little page, the little boxes with the project and said down the bottom if it's local or not?
Yes, there we do. Each of the projects in the project listing will note who the responsible agency is. So
Down below,
yeah,
where it tells you if it's local or not.
yes,
So I guess if something's managed by the state, it's not local.
No.
Okay, so they were specifically talking about municipalities.
Well, okay. So one additional wrinkle here. A municipality can choose to pay the state to manage their project, to take the burden off of them at the local level. A municipality can ask the state for a fee to manage a project for them. And that is happening a little bit more. I believe the Dairyfield School entrance is actually being managed by the state on behalf at the request of the city. So it's not quite that cut and dry. It's still an LPA project. It's the state is managing that for a fee at the request of the city. I know it's all complicated.
Any other questions in-house for Nate? Any questions online? Hello? Thanks, Nate. This is the update. We'll go from the tip to the tap. Dave Tilton on schedule for that one. Again, informational only. Nate stole a little of your thunder, I think.
We're getting ready just to recognize we have Barbara Griffin in the house over there. Well, on virtually in the house.
Afternoon. Hello, Sylvia.
Hi, Barbara.
All right, can everyone see that at full screen at home?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the Transportation Alternatives Programs, or TAP. So TAP, as Nate mentioned, is a federally funded program for non-motorized transportation projects. These funds cannot be used for recreational projects or any projects that enhance motorized use. There is a recreational trails program that can be used to access funds for recreational type projects, but that's separate from the TAP. It is also important to point out that this is a reimbursement program, not a grant. So that means that project sponsors will need to pay 100% of any bills and then request reimbursement after. And because this is 8% federal with a 20% match, when you request the reimbursement, you will be getting 80% of the total cost back. And also to point out that the funds cannot be received before payment is made for eligible work. And there's 4 basic categories of eligible activities that fall under the TAP. The construction, planning, and design of on and off-road facilities for non-motorized transportation, construction, planning, and design of infrastructure-related projects and systems that provide safe routes for non-motorized transportation, the conversion and use of abandoned railroads into trails, and eligible projects under Safe Routes to School from the safety loop. So to simplify that last slide a little bit, I've listed some eligible activities, eligible infrastructure, sidewalks, bike lanes, rail trail projects. What they're looking for is a type of facility or infrastructure that enhances non-motorized transportation. So these projects have to be transportation focused. They have to get you somewhere. It can't be a dead end or a loop. They have to be a beginning and end to the project. And even though the Safe Routes to School are part of TAP funding, NHDOT is focused on adding infrastructure, so a travel plan for Safe Routes to School would not be eligible under here. And here we have a map showing the communities that put in applications for round 5 of TAP. 30 applications were received, combining to have a funding request of $50.3 million. 40.3 million of federal TAP funds were requested, with only 25 million available for round 5. So there is a little less than half of the funds available to meet the demand of the 30 applications that put it in there. So this is a very competitive process again, with the whole state. And so what we're trying to do is to provide our communities with the best possible chance of getting through this process. And here we have a timeline for the TAP process as relates to SNHPC. Last week, we presented to the TAC. We did a project, the process overview, and went through the criteria that we'll be using, which we will review in a couple slides. And we formed a TAP evaluation subcommittee. Today, we're going to be presenting similarly to the MPO. We're going to go over the process and the criteria, and we'll meet the subcommittee members. The March 13th TAC presentation I highlighted because that is an important date in this process. That's when the project applicants, the sponsors from the projects, will be here. Will be at the TAC to do a in-depth presentation. So at that meeting, each project sponsor will have 15 minutes, 10 minutes to present, and 5 minutes of question answering to go through their project. After the March 13th meeting, the TAP evaluation subcommittee will meet to evaluate and rank the projects. On April 17th, the TAP evaluation subcommittee will give their project rankings to the full TAC. The TAC will be allowed to revise the rankings as they see fit, and then the TAP will come up with recommendations for the MPO. And then the next important meeting on this timeline is the April 22nd MPO meeting. That's where the MPO review the TAC recommendations and the project rankings, revise if they see fit, and then give their final approval for the project rankings. And I would like to note that 3 days after the April 22nd MPO meeting is the deadline for RPCs to submit their project rankings to the DOT. So we have a fairly constrained tight window to work in. And so we got 3 applications from our member communities. Goffstown, Manchester, and Wyndham were the communities that put in applications. On the next couple slides, I'm going to do a very brief high-level overview of the projects. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be having representatives from each of the projects come in and do a much more in-depth presentation. So the Goffstown project is looking to install a 126-foot-long pedestrian bridge to connect the Goffstown Rail Trail to the Goffstown Main Street Village area over the Piscataquag River. For Manchester, the city of Manchester is looking to construct multimodal improvements, traffic calming, and other safety enhancements along the roadways adjacent to Livingston Park. And Wyndham is looking to construct a 10-foot wide paved path along the Wyndham Greenway Rail Trail from Old Mill Road to North Lowell Road, going under 93. And so now this is part of, we're right now in the regional part of the prioritization process. So what SNHPC will be doing is we'll be taking those applications that we received from our communities and reviewing them. We'll be convening a meeting of the TAP evaluation subcommittee after the project sponsors had a chance to present to the full TAC to rank those projects. The TAP evaluation subcommittee will present their rankings to the TAC, the full TAC, on the April 17th meeting. And the TAC will revise those recommendations if they see fit and propose recommendations to the MPO, which will review those on April 22nd. And then the MPO will revise and then adopting final project prioritizations. After the April 22nd meeting, we will send our project rankings to the state where they will go through their own process. And we've gotten 3 volunteers at the last TAC meeting to graciously volunteer their time to become the TAP application evaluation subcommittee. Elizabeth Robidoux from Derry, Becky Herbert from Bedford, and our very own Sylvia Von Orlick all graciously volunteered for the position. Historically, the evaluation subcommittee members are made up of members from communities who have not submitted applications in this current round. Here we have an overview of the scoring criteria that SNHPC will be using. There's 5 main criteria, all with 20 points in total. And anyone who's familiar with the state's project scoring criteria will see that this is very familiar. We modeled our criteria after the states to try to give our projects the best chance of making it through the state's process. I'm going to go through each one of these in the next following slides. So the first criteria is asking, does this add to existing non-motorized facilities? Will the project add to existing non-motorized facilities by filling in gaps or adding length to non-motorized uses? We have some of our sub-criteria down here to answer those questions. Is it the next phase of a multi-phase project? Does it fill in gaps along a non-motorized facility? The second criteria is making non-motorized connections. Will the project make connections from population areas to destinations for goods, services, recreation, or government locations? And our sub-criteria asks a couple more pointed questions along those same lines. Does it connect a population node to a school? Does it bridge over water or a busy roadway? And does it just connect large population areas to goods, services, or government locations? Our third criteria is making connections to other modes of transportation. This one is simple enough. Does the project provide a non-motorized connection to bus, train, airport, or park and ride locations? The fourth one is stewardship. Will the community be able to maintain the project after it has been construction is completed? So this one is just asking what resources the municipality will have to provide towards maintaining the improvements. Do they have staff? Do they have equipment? Do they have funding for these for the improvement after its construction is complete? And finally, vulnerable road user target areas. This criteria is looking at the location of the project in context to the Safe Streets and Roads for All High Injury Network in New Hampshire DOT's Vulnerable Road User Safety Assessment. And so that is a brief overview of the TAP process. We can open up the floor to any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Dave? Seeing none, Any questions from our remote audience? Dave?
All right, great, thank you.
All right, on to other business. The other business needs to be brought to MPO.
Yeah, again, I just note that we're gonna be 1 week earlier than normal in March, so instead of the fourth Tuesday, we'll be on the third Tuesday, which I believe is March 18th. On the schedule.
Call for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Call to order the planning of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission meeting on February 25th. Look for some action on the minutes from January 28th.
Motion to accept is thirty.
All right, motion second. We want to do a roll call again.
All right, from Auburn, we have Chris Sterndale,
Here and yes.
Bedford, Bill Jean,
Here and yes.
virtually up. We also have in-house from Bedford, John Nelson
Here and yes.
and Mark Snyder.
Yes, here.
Virtually Brian Lord.
Here and yes.
Great. From Candia, we have Ron Lavender.
Here and yes.
From Chester, we have Deb Munson. Deb still here?
Yep.
All right, thanks, Deb. Deerfield, Fred McGarry
Here and yes.
and Harold Rhodes.
Here and yes.
From Derry, we have John O'Connor.
Here and yes.
Thanks, John. And Richard Tripp. I think Richard left. I don't think, okay. Francistown, Linda Kuhnhart. Here, yes. And Gary Schneckenberg.
Here and yes.
Goffstown, Barbara Griffin.
Here and abstain.
And Jacob LaFontaine.
Here and yes.
From Londonderry, Brian Battaglia,
Here and yes.
Susan Brunel,
Here and abstain.
and Deb Levens. All right, so Deb, we see you and a thumbs up because there was no voice. Thank you. And in-house, we have Art Rupp.
Here and yes on the minutes.
And Manchester, we have Peter Capano,
Here and yes.
Ray Clement,
Here and yes.
Dan O'Neill,
Here and yes.
and Eliza Augusta. From New Boston virtually, Mark Sunan, if he's still here,
I am here and yes.
and Ellen Campbell.
Here and yes.
Wow, you hung in there. Thank you. And Wyndham in-house, we have Peter Griffin
Here and abstain.
and Ed LaPointe
Here and yes.
and DJ Withy.
Here and abstain.
Thanks, DJ.
Thank you.
And that's about it.
Great. On to new business, regional comprehensive plan update. James is on board for that one. Again, an informational only presentation.
Can people see in full screen mode online?
We're seeing presenter screen, James.
Oh, okay.
And my old house.
One more time, just a second here. I'll reshare my screen. I can't. Right. Entire screen, no. Stop share, there we go. Show. Beginning. Get a hold of this eventually.
Pretty well hypnotized.
While you're awake.
Hard to
All right, I think I've got it. Cam, can you confirm that it's full screen now?
Yep, looks good.
All right, phew, that was a dance. All right, so today I am here to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan update and provide an overview of some of the key issues that were identified in the region. A lot of what we'll see today is based off of the 2015 comprehensive plan. And when I'm done going through the topic areas and talking about these issues, I'll be soliciting participation in a upcoming focus group. So why don't I get started? I mean, as you all know, the region is a place where we live, work, and play, and it's a place of significance to all of us. It's derived from the people and the work that we do here. And each of us contributes to that collective sense of the region. Oh, what's that, Zach? No, I didn't. Okay. And given that we're all collectively, contributing to the context and the history and the culture of the region, I think it's appropriate that we talk about that we talk about the issues as a group. So we'll do that. I can figure out how to move the screen. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the different topic areas for the region. There are 9 in total. We have land use, transportation, community facilities, housing, the economy, natural resources, natural hazards, recreation, and it's listed as energy efficiency, but really it's all things energy. So we'll start with the first one here, the issue of land use. It's probably the most important topic of a comprehensive plan. It really is the one that influences, we have the most influence over. And while growth in our region is pretty modest, it's still important for us to look at this and determine if the patterns that we see reflect our values and our wants and our desires and our needs. So some of the key issues within land use include the rate of land development, i.e. how much land has the region developed year to year. Land is a finite resource, so how much undeveloped land is left in the region? How do we manage that? Efficiency of existing land use. So how much land is needed to support each citizen or each job that exists in the region, and coordination of future development. Do current and future land uses have harmony with the lives that we live? Another one is transportation, and this topic, because Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission is a metropolitan transportation organization or a planning organization, an MPO, it can feel like transportation has an outsized role in shaping our region. And while federal funding for transportation infrastructure is a critical resource for growing our region and making sure we stay competitive, in many ways, it's shaped by our patterns, the way we live our lives. And so, as much as anything else, its issues are a reflection of the culture of our community. So let's take a second to look at some of these. It covers a wide range of demands. And one thing I'd note about key issues is that we recently surveyed citizens to identify their priorities around transportation. And what we heard is that additional transportation choices are a high priority for our region at the local level and at the individual level. And this is especially true for seniors or people aging out of driving. Other high priority areas were safety and affordability, as well as the reliability of the system for people to reach their destination on time and without surprise. On top of sort of the overarching issues, there's there's ongoing issues that constantly, or more dynamic issues, things that change from year to year. And I just wanted to note some of those because of their importance in planning for the region. So things like operations and maintenance, changes to the economy, are we having a boom? Are we in a downturn? Environmental conditions and sources of revenue, funding. All these things play a role in the shape of our transportation system, and they don't necessarily look like big new projects or shiny plans. They're really the day-to-day work, and they matter. The next topic area here is community facilities. Every town is responsible for providing local services, and they need facilities to do that. Services such as police and fire, and utilities such as power and water service, they play an important role in maintaining public health, and welfare and safety for all of us in the region. And so providing these services requires investments that need to be balanced with available resources. And so here's some thoughts about the key issues that reflect community facility key issues. So water and sewer, where do services exist and what capacity is there for growth? Local government services, our police, fire, schools, local roads meeting the needs of a community? What other community needs are out there? Is there access to broadband? Do you have community recycling? Are your libraries functioning? Facilities along that nature. And sources and uses of funds. How do governments plan for investments and then raise the funds? The mechanism we hear about the most often here is, capital improvement plans. Regional issues around housing. So we know that housing is probably the most important issue for our state. And citizens face unique challenges. There's a lack of supply and there's a lack of production. We're not building enough to keep up with demand. As a result of that, there's shrinking affordability. The cost of housing is outstripping people's incomes and ability to balance it with other needs, transportation, food, health, those sort of things. In addition, the housing condition in the region is aggravated by local zoning restraints on the type and form and location of housing. And we're running into potential issues around an aging population that may not be able to maintain and stay in their home as they age. Impacts from housing or issues around housing are not limited to just market conditions or demographics. We also have a situation where, because of low production or production below demand, where housing costs are rising faster than people's incomes are rising. So it's outpacing inflation. We have an unhoused populations. And homelessness or being unhoused can take many different forms. It's not necessarily just the individual that you might see on the street that is suffering from this issue. It might be long-term residents in your community, people you've known for decades that don't have a good option once they've hit the end of the road with their current housing situation. One of the things we saw identified in 2015, and I think is still a point of discussion today, is the way we structure taxes in New England or New Hampshire. A reliance on property tax puts a pretty high cost, the cost of operating towns to the cost of housing. And that has implications for the community. And then concentrations of poverty. We see that, albeit our region overall is doing quite well, and there are quite low levels of poverty in the region, there still exists pretty high concentrations of poverty, especially in the center city of Manchester. And so that's worth noting and talking about. The next topic area, and we'll speed up with the last couple issues here, but the regional economy. We're lucky to have one of the most educated workforces in the nation. Workforce talent here attracts businesses around the country to locate here, due to that knowledge. And this supports high pay for the region and low poverty. So just overview of some of the key issues associated with the economy. Are people getting ahead? That means are people's wages growing relative to the rising cost of living? As their access to employment, are the jobs that are available the ones that people can that people in the region need? Is the overall population employed? Are those jobs located within commuting distance? Maybe not so much an issue internally to the region, but the region attracts people from far away to come work in southern New Hampshire. And alternatively, people in southern New Hampshire drive great distances to access jobs in other regions. And then there are other indicators to the economy as well, you know, the age of workforce, its education, and the cost of living. Most notably, housing is one of those issues that's been tied to the economy. All right, so two more sort of slide sections here, and we're doubling up on two of the issues here. So this is both natural resources and recreation. You know, part of why people move here is the joy of access to natural environments that we have, the oceans, mountains, and also our cities and our access to the metropolitan area of Boston. You know, we really do have good sources of entertainment and outdoor activities all around us. Some of the key issues associated with the region's natural resources include land conservation for public use, preservation of water resources, protections for wildlife and forests, and risks to agricultural activities. Recreation of all types are essential, and here I you know, I tried to group these into a couple of areas of interest, I think. So opportunities for people to express themselves through art or performance, opportunities for physical play, you know, go out and get sports or hike a trail, and celebrations for identity and place, which contribute to our culture and our sense of self-belonging. And finally here, we'll cover natural hazards and energy. And what we have here is under natural hazard is an acknowledgement that weather extremes are happening with greater frequency and intensity. And this requires considering its impact. So, you know, does the public have a good understanding of the risks involved with natural disasters that are happening? Are we using good science to make decisions about how to react to those conditions? Are there proactive measures that we're taking at a regional level scale, local scale, to mitigate known risks? Take the flooding program, for example, it's very effective. And is there sufficient leadership for addressing both disasters as they happen and our ability to plan for disasters? Something we've heard a lot of over the last 10 years since the last update was the cost of energy. And it's an effect on both people's personal household incomes, but also the thing we hear more loudly is its impact on attracting businesses to work and operate in our region. You know, high electric bills mean that certain types of manufacturing and business activity choose not to be here. You know, and I frame this around energy efficiency, but really you could frame this around energy independence as well. And so, you know, one of the things we saw as an issue raised in 2015 was the high upfront cost of doing any kind of efficiency or energy independence project. Say you want to put a solar panels or a wood burning facility on your property. The cost of doing that is often prohibitive and has resulted in people staying away from them. Additionally, there's been a lot of regulatory changes over the last 10 years in terms of incentives and programs to help facilitate local energy production. And as a result, people shy away from taking the risk because by the time you plan something, it might lead to a new year and the program might have changed. So this was raised an issue. The last two here are imported energy and its volatility. So natural gas, electricity. We don't produce those things in New Hampshire. We have to pull them in from other places. And as a result, when there's drastic price changes, we have very little control over how to manage that. And then finally, land use patterns. Every one of us probably drove here today except for Liza. Thank you, Liza. And as a result of our car dependence, we live lives that consume more energy. It's just a fact that if you don't walk to buy your groceries or walk to work, or your kid doesn't walk to school, that you have to burn fuel or burn electricity to live your lives. And that is tied directly to how we build out our region. And so it's worth acknowledging the linkage between these two things. Doesn't mean we have to do anything about it other than acknowledge it and plan for it. So I've gone through the topics with you, and I have a request. I have here some sign-up sheets, and I would like to invite the commissioners and the public to participate in focus group discussions. So I will hand out these sheets and invite people to sign up if they're interested in joining a focus group discussion. Maybe pass this one to the other table. Thank you. And what the focus group discussions will do is explore the state of the regional issues. We'll use data to help, and we'll also use data to help determine what the goals should be around those topic areas. And so what we've done is hand out the sign out sheet. And what I would note is if you're online and you're watching this and you have an interest, what you can do is use the Zoom chat box to add your name, email, and the topic area you're interested in. But we're going to use these focus group discussions to, as we noted, talk about the issues, talk about the data, and sort of hone in on goals for the comprehensive plan. So for those of you online that can't see the sign-up sheet, here's kind of a visual representation of it. We're asking, we've listed the topic areas of discussion, and we're asking for your name, your email, which town you represent, and the topic areas. What I would note is that if you're watching this after this meeting has ended, or you're viewing the slide deck online, this particular slide will be replaced partially with a link so that you can fill out an online form. So we're reaching people.
Get that? Can you put the link up where will we find it?
It'll be in the slide deck.
On the website.
Yes.
But you can also email directly all the commissioners, right?
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. We'll follow up on this meeting by sending out an email with a general solicitation for participation. So what I would say is if you have a particular interest in, say, natural resources and recreation, you know, put those topic areas down. We'll try to sort this out based on people's interests. What we don't know is how many people will participate. So we haven't honed this into a set of discussion groups, but what will most likely happen is some of these will get aggregated together so that we can get groups of, say, 5 to 8 people. So we don't, so that everybody has the ability to participate at an individual level.
And do you expect to groups will meet during the day or at night, or what's your expectations?
And where?
Well, it would be virtually. We'll just do this via Zoom session. If there's a preference for daytime or evening, we could do that. What the aim here is to get strong participation amongst the commissioners. So really what works best for the commissioners would be what the way we would set the meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have any input on, would you prefer daytime or?
I'm only gonna speak for myself. Daytime would be easier to be than nighttime, but
Okay.
the planning planning experts.
I imagine it'll be different for each focus group depending on who's volunteering.
Tired.
Well- Well, I'm looks like I'm right on time, so thank you, everyone. If there aren't any other questions, I'm all done.
Check with the home viewers.
More questions? Any questions from our virtual audience?
Looks like there's a couple questions online.
And we're still just seeing the.
Oh. We gotta end the slide deck. All right. Just one comment from Ellen, who signed up for housing and land use.
And Brian is signing up for housing and transportation. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Yeah, if anybody else from online wants to sign up, just go ahead and throw your name and your interest area in the chat box. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, James. So is there any other business needs to come for Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission? Anyone online? Hearing or seeing? Call for adjourn. Comment first. Commissioner insights.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, now we'll go. It's all over. I think we have a motion.
I think we're.
All in favor, I think we're all good.
Bye.
March 18th.
See you in 3 weeks, not 4. Thank you so much.
Actually, you're not in any way, right?